Truck 1, Ambulance 1, Medic 1, showing all units en route to
Dispatch ambulance 7, St. Mary's Code 3 was on.
Welcome to Going Interior, a podcast about doing hard jobs and living well. I'm your host, Jamie Cavanaugh, Captain Paramedic with the Grand Junction Fire Department and Peer Support Team Coordinator. Now that my guest today, Jason Whitesides, relinquished the reins to me. Jason was with the fire department for 17 years. We worked downtown together for a while. Jason finished as a captain, the Peer Support Team founder and longtime coordinator, 5 years doing wildland, Marine Corps for 6 before that, husband and father of twin 16-year-olds.
Twins, yeah.
Tons of hobbies, mostly physical, running, cycling, skiing, hanging out. I know hanging out with the family is a huge one for you.
Number one,
You
yeah.
blow me off a lot of times to do that, which is totally...
Love you, buddy,
but... He knows where number one is. I appreciate that. So, Jason, welcome. Thank you so much for being
glad
here.
to be
Awesome
here.
to have you.
Glad to be here.
Have you. Thank you. So many people, myself included, are super excited to hear about what makes you tick. Like what you brought to people helped elevate their game. Your positivity, doing this job, and just living life is infectious, you know. And I think that's a way you're known, whether you know it or not.
Had a good idea,
but that's
that
in some
widespread.
ways. I mean, that's your legacy wherever you go. What did was that innate? Is that something you're born with, or is that something you work to cultivate?
No, I definitely think, you have to work on it just like anything. I mean, I had my bad days for sure, but one thing that I would always make sure to do is I would not take it to work. Every once in a while I would, have some days, and, you have your close guys that you could pull into the office and say, hey man, I'm having a rough go or whatever. But when that door closed and you were going out to, whether I was a supervisor, and I really, really was conscious about that as a captain. Whatever I was going through, when I closed that door, it was positive with my crew. But earlier on, like if, I would try real hard still not to be, negative to my buddies, just because, it's a terrible thing to have that around the firehouse, and everybody knows it. You can have one or two guys really bring down a station, and that just sucks. I just enjoyed coming to work, and I had this theory, or this thing that I would always tell new guys or guys that would work with me. If you're coming to work and you're not stoked and you're not happy, I'm doing something wrong, and tell me. I'll make that environment, conducive to that. And I've always been, pretty positive.
Yeah.
In life, but it's just your outlook. It's such a waste of time to get drugged down in drama, BS. Hey, I didn't swear.
Good job.
It's just a colossal waste of time, and I've worked with a ton of different people throughout my life, and through the Marine Corps, through the BLM, you would work with those crotchety old people who, I just didn't want to be like that, and so I started just, all right, who do I want to be like? And I would really look towards those leaders who were always positive. And I think on top of that, most of those leaders who were always positive, I wanted to work for them, and the people that they were attracting were your top tier people. I mean, you want to be negative Nancy and complain about how life sucks. Go ahead. We're not even going to waste our time with you. So early on, I was kind of, I knew that was the style that I was going to go with. And it was kind of easier for me just because I do feel I'm a fairly positive guy. And then, surrounding yourself with the same type of people. I'm not one to really hang around with too many negative people. I mean, like I was saying, it's just a colossal waste of time. So yeah.
I have this quote. I thought of you for a few quotes, but the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. That was Steve Jobs, actually. And then
He knows a thing or two, that guy.
Yeah, apparently. This guy, Thomas Jefferson, he said, nothing can stop the man with the right mental attitude from achieving his goal. Nothing on earth can help the man with the wrong mental attitude.
That's a good one too, for sure. I think another thing that helped me a ton too was I've been put in some pretty precarious spots. It was dicey whether we were going to make it home or not. Mm-hmm. And I think when you're kind of presented with that, it gives you a different outlook on life.
For sure.
You're like, wow, that could have gone south real quick.
Absolutely.
And, you need to cherish every moment that you have. A friend of mine, after an incident with the BLM, a good buddy of mine really struggled. It was the burnover.
What's that? What's a burnover?
Oh, the burnover. My last season, right before I got hired here, our crew was up in Wyoming. Long story short, we had to deploy shelters. We basically got ran over. Pretty gnarly experience.
Yeah,
I had actually just found out like 3 days prior that my wife was pregnant with the twins.
Wow.
It was a little bit of a struggle for me.
Sure.
And anyway, so we were in our shelters for about an hour and a half or so. One of my buddies who was with us, he really struggled for a long time. He ended up writing a book. And I met up with him a couple of years ago in California. And I was chatting with him, and he was just like, he had completely changed. Like he was really positive. He was almost like glowing in a way, right? And I'm like, what has gone on with you? Because last time I saw him, he was a mess, And he had been working with a lot of vets and a lot of, people that had been in traumatic situations. And we were chatting, and he was like, a lot of people that have been in these situations, they look at it and they have this term they call like, you've been touched. Mm-hmm. You've been given like this opportunity, to move forward and be an example to other people and don't mess it up, And so once he kind of crossed that line and figured out that experience, as traumatic as it was, don't dwell on it. Let's use this to kind of help guide other people through struggles. And it was pretty profound to me because he was, talk about negative Nancy, man. I mean, he really did not do well.
Cool. That's that post-traumatic growth or post-traumatic wisdom we hear about, right?
Totally. Yeah.
It can be a thing.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be disorder. It can be growth, right?
Yep. And that's
disorder might be disorder for a while and turn into growth. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
It sounds like he did the work in some ways to recover from that, right? He tried.
Yeah, it took a long time, a lot of counseling.
Yeah.
And a lot of working with, folks that had been in whatever their situation was, those times where the outcome could have been bad. But
well, that's cool. And he's using it, he's using his platform to help other people then, which is super empowering thing and impactful for him, let alone those other folks.
It's interesting because when obviously I've spent a lot of time in counseling over it and stuff, but when I look back at that incident, and I know it sounds a little bit strange, but that wasn't as gnarly as an incident that I had before. I had a few incidents in the Marines that were not pleasant. But the difference is, like, in the Marines, it was just me, right? Like, I was a young dude, no wife, no kids. So if something were to happen, it's just me, right? And it's you almost kind of like downgraded a little bit, But this incident, I had a wife. We had just found out we were having kids, twins to boot. So the whole time I'm thinking, holy, I could be, not around. That's not a good thing. So psychologically, it really messed with me. In my opinion, the amount of training that you do is absolutely important. You have got to be a master at your skill, no doubt about it. However, if you don't have that relationship with those guys that are around you, that tight group, your outcome is probably not going to be very good. And I consider the outcome of that incident, one of the only reasons why we all survived is because we were super tight. This group was some of my best friends. And, we had guys that wanted to kind of run this way, run that way, or whatever. And our main focal, our supervisor, I guess you could say, my buddy, was like, guys, we got to stick together and go here. And there was 3 places in that canyon that people could have survived, and we picked one of them out of a 5-mile range, and it was the same thing in the Marines too, right? Those guys that I was with, we were super tight. If you don't have that tool of having a super tight, group, you're missing out on the big picture. And I was always a huge proponent of, and that's why, I would be so particular with my crew, my fire crew. Like the importance of being close, the importance of knowing, when that dude next to you is having a rough go or whatever. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. I would almost argue it that is more important than, the technical aspect. The mentally and psychologically, you can get through a lot. And then you add, the brotherhood, a true brotherhood, and you're unstoppable. And that one took a long time to really dig in and figure out that was one of the things that was, I needed to work through. I'd kind of brushed it off a little bit.
How did you cultivate that in your crew? How did you bring them in tight? Because you're not a big go out for beers after work kind of guy, that sort of thing. What was your way of doing that? Like
those group activities, let's just say it like that, whether it be training, whether it be working out, trying to incorporate everybody, right? And knowing where people, you might have a guy who isn't comfortable going out and running 3 miles. You might have a guy who's not comfortable lifting weights. So finding that activity, whatever it is, that brings people together. That's why I was a huge fan of pickleball. Pickleball was something that everybody could pick up. And it might be a disaster, but who cares? You were there as a crew, no matter what you're doing. You would always try to incorporate something and then throw some training in there. And I was a big proponent of, throughout the day, you did your chores, and then we would work out. We would do try to do an activity together, and then cooking. As odd as it sounds, there's a few things that firefighters love to do. Working out and eating, right, and training. But that time in the kitchen where everybody's kind of helping out. If you're not helping out, you might be doing the dishes, but you're interacting with each other, and you're getting to know them. You're putting that new guy or whoever, the new person to your station, you're putting them in the mix, and then you're really trying to encourage them to socialize with you and figure out, oh wow, this guy has 4 brothers who are, super big weightlifters, so okay, can I incorporate, some type of weight training, or maybe he can teach us, try to hone in on the new person's, what their likes and dislikes are,
Not putting the new guy in the other room to study by himself?
Absolutely not. No, when we would get new guys, I would tell them, I'm like, listen, I know you have a lot to study for, and I'm not going to mess with you. However, after 5 o'clock, I know you're not in that office studying with the phones that people have. Come on, so I always had a little bit of a problem with it. Like, here we are saying, hey, we're giving you welcome to our family. You just won the lottery on the world's best job, but I want you to not talk to me until midnight when you're supposed to go to bed. They can study, and no one is built to study for 24 hours a day or 48 hours. Come on. Bring them into your family. If your family is so dysfunctional that you don't want to talk to them, you probably better look in the mirror and go, what am I doing? Get to know them on a personal level.
So you had your daughters right after you started at the fire department? What was it like raising a family? Wonderful. In the fire department family?
It was one of the best things ever. The girls, when I told them I was retiring, they were super happy for me. Sure. But they're also, they loved coming to the fire station. Yeah. Specifically when they were young, and I was really fortunate to have some wonderful captains, and they let my little rugrats run all over the place. And I remember one night specifically, Captain Coleman, he let myself and the paramedic got a call, and so we had to rally out on the ambulance, and Coleman let him say "Good night, Dad" on the radio. And so Captain Coleman was a huge impact on my life.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as ornery as he could be, he was very welcoming to my daughters. You know, it's the same thing I tell my guys at my station. You know, there's that fine balance. It's not a daycare.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my kids and my wife knew that they come over for a little bit, then, you know, there is that fine line, because you can't turn your firehouse into a zoo, you know, by any means. But I still am a huge proponent of get people in your firehouse.
So tell me about you didn't do every extracurricular. I know that you weren't about just joining every single committee, but you were surgical about which ones you put your time into. You got a shirt on representing one of them. Tell me about the other stuff you did during your time at the fire department.
I focused on the things that I was passionate about, and I knew that I could grow, you know, get those programs up and running and successful. Because I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of people do get confused on that. They're like, oh man, I want to get promoted. I need to be on it. You know, you name it, the clothing committee, and I don't even like clothes, right? but that's not the truth. Pick those ones that you're passionate about, even if it's one. Be passionate about it and be good at it, you know, and put your heart and soul into it. So the ones that I did early on, the turkey trot, obviously, and then that turned into the foundation, which I'm super proud of. Wes just pulled the numbers the other day, and actually, since we started like bookkeeping, which was like 2015, which is 7 years after we started the turkey trot, we've raised like $500,000.
Wow.
So that's pretty sweet.
Wow. And what are you doing with the money? Like
So we have the scholarships, we have the grant program, and then we do like the Christmas program. Basically, through the school district, you're finding families that need help during Christmas. Scholarships is super cool, especially with the amount of kids that are going to be coming up pretty soon. So we give the kids about $1,000. We wanted something to where all this money could go to just helping people. And so that's exactly everything that is warm and fuzzy and makes you feel good comes out of the foundation. Nice. So, and then obviously the peer support team. I'm very proud of it, but yeah, that took a lot of work. But
tell me about starting it. Why did you do all that work? When was it?
So, man, what were we at? 7 years, I think. I was going through I couldn't figure it out. I was going through some issues. I was short with the kids. I was short with my wife. And I couldn't figure it out. And it was bumming me out because, I mean, quite honestly, man, I have a really good life. You know, my wife is wonderful. My kids are super sweet. My in-laws are rad. And just something was off, and I couldn't figure it out. So I was like, well, let me try EAP. So, you know, I called them, and I got this call center, and so I was kind of deflated, you know, and like I did not feel well, and I knew I needed help, and so I was like, shoot, I have a good support network. What about these guys who don't? You know, like I got to find something. So I was at like a conference once, and they started talking about mental health, and that's when I started, you know, just going, all right, this has to be, you know, something that we bring here to Junction. So I started looking and started doing a ton of research, and I was finding these programs that were out there, but they sucked. I knew that I wouldn't talk to, you know, this person or that person. EAP is a wonderful tool, but, you know, their counselors weren't great. I mean, God bless them, but they just didn't fit me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I did a ton of research, and I found this guy in Fort Collins for Pooter Fire. And I remember we were at a conference, and I remember walking into the room, and him and his battalion chief gave a quick, like 5-minute spiel on their program that they were running. And it was exactly what we needed. It was perfect. So I cornered the battalion chief and this captain in the hallway, and 3 hours later, I let them go, and I mean they were happy to well, at least I hope they were. They were happy to help me out.
Sure.
Everything they said made sense. So I got in touch with their people. I started looking for a counselor over here. I got a hold of like 62 counselors before I found Jamie.
Wow.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time. And it was so funny because the whole range of counselors that I was finding it was just,
Sure.
Kumbaya type stuff. So I found Jamie, which is a whole other long story, but found her. She was super cool about it. I had known her for a while, but she was working for a different company at the time, so I didn't think that she was an option. But I just so happened to kind of hit her at a transitional time in her career. And so at the time we had Chief Roth here, and he was a huge proponent of the peer team. So he helped me. He gave me everything I needed to kind of get it started. And I remember being super scared because I wasn't promoted, at this time. And I remember being scared that I would be known as like the Dr. Phil of the fire department.
Sure.
And I didn't know how I felt about that. I'm like, dude, seriously? You want to be known as Dr. Phil? But at another conference that I was at, there was this captain that was talking. And he basically, in a nutshell, was like, if you are sitting there and you're dragging your feet because of some personal issue, and you are preventing someone from getting the help they need, damn you. And that changed it. I was like, all right, man, you need to quit. This isn't about me. And I don't care what people think about me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had to get through that. And then, we built that program. And
it's cool.
And I think it's, it's helped me tremendously. I know you're a big fan of it. And so that's how it started. And
Nice. It's cool.
And now look at you guys.
It's pretty exciting though, 8 years later, to feel like we've helped shift a culture in some ways. And there's some people that'll still say, I could take it or leave it.
Sure.
Hopefully there's not a whole lot saying the peer team's the worst thing ever. I don't, I haven't encountered that. Maybe there's a couple out there, but I do feel there's a lot of folks who have been super positively impacted, and just the creating that stronger brotherhood and sisterhood, all those, like bringing everybody together in a different way, I think has been an outgrowth of this. It's not just people being able to get counseling. It is all the things of opening up and saying, let's create more deep bonds. I know probably when you started, even when I started, a lot of the prevailing mentality was, we've got a couple options. Probably don't cry at the firehouse, for sure. But don't even bring that stuff here. That has no place here, and just forget about it. Go for a jog, drink a beer. Those are your two skills.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that was part of the challenge. And when we first launched it, man, that was legit.
Yeah.
We definitely had some backlash, but that was good with Roth, as he had my back 100% on it. If anybody ever was unprofessional, he would have, helped me. I think what the hard thing for me is those guys who are bucking it a little bit, they're the guys that need it the most, and it breaks your heart to know that, there is help out there, man, and you're not weak for asking for help. Quite the contrary, I believe.
It looked different for you when you were struggling than it might look for somebody else, right? And I think you're hinting at that. There's this broad array of how we may adapt to our job in ways we don't want to, or our life in general. So for somebody it may be sadness, for somebody it may be anger, short-temperedness, inability to concentrate, all these different things that can be signs that either we're stressed out, we're having a reaction to to the trauma we've seen, we're not getting enough sleep, all those things can play out in like 100 different ways. And my counseling for folks, or I shouldn't say counseling, my discussion with people is that if you don't exhibit any of these in a 25-year career, you're the unicorn. We're all going to be touched in
Right.
some way, and we all need to figure out ways to adapt kind of in a more healthy way. You're busy. You were busy even while you were here, managing properties, that sort of thing. You're probably still busy in retirement. I don't see you sitting around playing video games, that's for sure. What are some of the skills you've seen be effective either for you or for other folks?
Oh, I obviously, having your physical outlets, that's huge. Like for me, if I don't get my running in the morning, I'm a mess. And very rarely do I miss it, but having those activities that, number one, you have activities by yourself that you can clear your head, think about what's going on. And then, mixing that with good family time, friend time. I do feel like, those times where you can go out and have a beer with a buddy or whatever, go riding with a buddy, you need that. You have your family, you have your spouse, and then you've got your friends, and then yourself. I think that balance is huge. And, that just looking at, trying to be as positive as you can. If something's bothering you, talk about it, get it off your chest. It's like you have to balance everything out. And I know that's kind of cliche, and everybody says, oh, you just need to balance it. And I kind of look at it as, success.
Okay.
And success is like a 360, right? Like a circle. And it's all around you. You look at really successful people, and their business is good, their family life is good. It's never going to be perfect. I'm not saying that, but you're not going to have a rock star business if your family life is crappy. So the amount of focus that you're putting on everything has to be the same. Or you might have busy times at your job, that's gonna, and you might have busy family time, but all in all, they kind of have to balance out.
Sure.
And it would always be comical to me when I would hear, perhaps some of our coworkers talk about how rad of a leader they are or whatever, but their home life was cruddy, or how they treated people was cruddy, and that to me never matched. You can't have that, in my opinion. You can't really be a rock star captain, but then treat your guys like crap.
Yeah.
Or treat your spouse like crap. It doesn't balance out. That's my theory. But going back to what I try to do to keep my sanity, it's really try to focus on that balance. You know what I mean? And partially that's why I chose to retire early, is that balance was getting off. And we knew that we had to do something, and we fixed it.
Nice. If you're spending all your time on work, guess what's going to happen to your family?
Yeah.
It's not going to be good.
Yeah.
We need to spend time in all those areas.
Yep.
Water all those seeds that we want to grow, right? Otherwise,
Same with
they'll
your
wither.
And I think also your friend group, what I mean? Surround yourself with those friends who are supportive of you.
So doing what we do, you get injured at some point. Exercise has been a big thing for me, been a big thing for you. You get injured, you have all these other areas that are helpful in your life and potentially support you through this hard time.
Absolutely.
You have a hard time at work, you have a hard time in family, whatever it may be, then you have all these other things that balance you out and kind of buoy you to get back on the track you want to be on.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just like a well-run business. You have to have systems in place. If you don't have those systems in place, things are going to fail. And it's not complex systems. It's just treating those around you well, so they want to be around you. And the time to ask for help isn't when you're injured. It's you're building those relationships prior. So when something does happen, they're there. And that's, going back to that, those incidents that I've personally been through, that's why I'm a huge proponent of having that crew cohesion, because we would not have, I don't think the outcome would have been the same on multiple occasions without that tight support group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Talking about tight support group, you and Nat, like this awesome team, you know, how do you conscientiously recalibrate sometimes? How do you do that? You just made a big decision. Do you just both have pretty solid bearings and just go with it? Or is this something you guys talk about and it ebbs and flows and you need to correct course a little bit every now and again?
Sure. We're a good team. I thank my lucky stars every day that I met her, you know what I mean? Because she is definitely the smarter of the two, for sure. She is so patient to get. That's what's really cool about me and her is, we have, all these challenges we've been through together, and we've stuck it out, and she's definitely. I won the lottery with her, buddy. I mean, she's probably looking at this, going, "Oh, I wish I could come in and chime in and say this guy's a huge pain in the butt." But we communicate a ton. We honestly, man, we don't fight. We'll discuss things, and but we've never fought, and which I think is rare, and I think it's cool, and that's why I'm very grateful to have her. And she also knows that, I have a pretty big touch of, whatever I have to go for it, and she supports me, and that's kind of how the business started. I would come to her and tell her, "Hey, I think I'm onto something," and she'd be like, "You sure?" And I'm like, "Yep." And she would back me, and she did it through the whole way, and then obviously she got on board 100%. But it's that supporting one another, and it's it's also she's probably you got to know when to give each other space and know each other's lane is a good way to put it. Know what she knows what I get really obsessed about, and then I know what she gets really obsessed about, and we don't critique each other on it. I just know that she's going to do this, and she knows that I'm going to go down this path. But knowing that, and then I think it's really important. And most guys that I have worked with have heard me say this, but you have got to, you have got to have spousal time, like at least once a week, and I mean that like by a date night, right? And a date night doesn't mean dinner and a movie. It can be a walk down the street, and it was actually Jamie who helped me, kind of understand this one. And we try real, just like anything, dude, no one's perfect, but we try real hard to once a week, we don't talk business, we don't talk fire, we talk us, we talk about, how we're doing or whatever. And that's been hugely beneficial. And I've had a ton of people come up to me and tell me that they've implemented it in their life, and it's been helpful for them, but.
No, it's hugely helpful. I think life gets busy. You have kids and the relationship dynamic changes. It's certainly about how do we provide for these kids versus how do we connect with each other. And I think keeping that connection, making sure that's still strong is super important. Your kids are going to be 18 in 2 years. And then,
don't tell Nat that's a sore subject because they're leaving.
But that'll change the relationship dynamic again, and that focal point shifts, right?
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah. Hopefully she keeps me around.
I think you're good at this point. I've appreciated how you guys complement each other too. With your business, you're a property manager. You own houses and rent them out and that sort of thing, just if people don't know that, right? But you guys' skill sets really complement each other, and it seems like you both really appreciate that about the other person.
Absolutely.
And let them run in their area of expertise and obviously back them and pursue your area of expertise and your passion. It just makes such a cool team.
Yeah, she's really good at it, and I do feel we make a really good team.
Nice.
But but just like anything, you have to compliment one another on that. Like, and we take it for granted sometimes. I won't tell her thing. Like right now, she's fixing a water heater for me. Yeah, I think we complement each other really well.
Yeah.
But
I felt like we complemented each other fairly well as coordinating the peer support team as well toward the end of your time. So I'm bummed you have retired. You're obviously the relationship builder, really the visionary as far as that went. Even when we interviewed Jamie, so she's our counselor. I'm not speaking of myself in the third person. She's our counselor for the peer support team, has been from the get-go. Yep. I wasn't as sure as you were initially. You're like, this is the person that's going to help this team grow. Your skills were always in those relationships, the relationship even with upper staff, to say, just, you got to have some faith, got to give me some leeway so we can run with this thing. And they did, you know, it was really cool. And some of the organization stuff ended up being more my bag. But it was really amazing to watch you grow that program, and to watch the success of the Turkey Trot and the Firefighter Foundation, and really cultivating this different mindset in folks that I think can be challenging in our work. We often get into this work to say we want to help people, we want to do these different things, and one of the common pitfalls is, you and I were working downtown. It's can be a challenging spot to 50% of our calls at least were people suffering with severe like alcohol dependency issues. So we're running on, people that are drunk all the time.
Right.
Not that thankful for our services, to be honest, and we needed to figure out a new channel, a different way to channel that energy. We wanted to be those helpers and not become disgruntled about it, not lose that passion that we had. It changed.
Like, however you want to put it, this occupation is a gift. There's a ton of people out there that are just waiting and trying to get this occupation, and they can't. And you get paid very well. Your benefits are good. You're surrounded by some cool guys and gals, and you get to do some cool stuff all the time. So I was always I felt like this was a gift, and I needed to give back. And that was one way that I could. I knew that I could put on an event, and I knew that we could grow it and make some money. And then the whole idea initially wasn't to make a ton of money. The idea was to get people out with their families, and exercising. But then now it has grown into, making a fair bit of money. And now we're able to really help out a ton of people who need it. And I just feel like, not being religious or anything, that's just part of what we should do.
Well, it seems like you've been able to really choose your mindset and be thoughtful about that, and also encourage it in some ways, like that. You've cultivated that positive mindset, that giving mindset that some people may say, well, that's just Jason, that's how he's always been, that sort of thing. And maybe there is a component of that, but I think one thing we're learning too, this neuroplasticity and stuff, right? Our brains can change. So they're going to change throughout the course of this career. And if we just get sour working downtown, go home, drink some beers, be pissed off, watch the news, water these seeds of anger, discontent, frustration, whatever they may be, we can change our minds one way, Or if you do this thing and you've shown a bit of a path in some ways, you said the appreciation for your family, for the gifts you've had, you've poured energy into these things that you really believe in that do a lot of good for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I mean, I think, going back, if you're stagnant, or if you're, going to work and you're not happy, for whatever reason. So say you're surrounded by people that you don't like. You don't have to like everybody. It's not always going to happen like that, but change your surrounding. There's nothing wrong with, admitting or understanding that, this group, I'm not jiving with this group. There is absolutely, I would hope, if that were the case, I know back 6 months ago, if somebody were really struggling, we would put them with another crew. And that's fine. You're not abandoning anybody. It's self-preservation. Absolutely. So for those folks that are listening to this and they're not happy with where they're at, or they're coming to work and they're fearful and they're not supported, find somewhere else. Life's too short. This career's too short. Change it.
Yeah.
And I support you.
Yeah.
If I was working here, you could come work for me any day of the week. But
I don't think that piece of advice runs contrary to. So our other firefighter, when we were downtown, used to always say, "If the grass is always greener, water your lawn."
Your grass.
Right. So this isn't for the person that's moving crews every 6 months.
Right.
At some point, that's you, and that's what you're bringing to the new station, right?
But remember, going back to that, that one captain that I was telling you about, like if out of your selfishness, if you're preventing somebody from, potentially getting the help they need, shame on you.
Right.
I felt that was profound for me. You don't need to be doing the podcast. We didn't need to build a peer team.
Right.
I didn't need to start a run,
Right.
which took every Thanksgiving for the last 17 years.
Yeah,
But look at
You're
the
already
good.
running. Yeah.
Look at the good.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
you know,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, like when you give back, like that's just a sense of like, it just makes you feel good. Yeah, it makes you feel good, and then it makes you really appreciate just, you know, those little things in life, I guess you could say.
Final 5. Tell me about, you mentioned a few mentors already. One that sticks in your mind.
Ooh, numero uno, Sherv.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Chief Sherv, my homie. We came into the fire service together. I used to tease him because he was a nurse.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mentored under him, and you know, there's a reason why everyone wanted to go to that crew.
Yeah.
And I can say that now that I'm retired, because he offers such a positive outlook and he's supportive. Things run a whole lot better when you have somebody that you trust, you know, you can tell them you're not scared to talk to you. If you have a question, you know, you're not fearful of
Right.
being looked at like an idiot or whatever. You know, he might tell you you're an idiot. But, I just love him to death.
Yeah.
I think he's probably one of the best.
How about you mentioned some podcasts. Podcast. You're getting down.
I listen to podcasts all the time.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah, I started listening to podcasts I don't really enjoy to read, to be honest with you. My brain just goes other places. So when I would run, I would listen to podcasts or whatever. There's a whole series on them. It's Brandon Turner.
Okay.
Through Bigger Pockets, and obviously it's kind of a real estate based podcast series, but it's also like he brings in guests from all over the place, and they talk about random stuff like that and good stuff. So just not only business stuff, but just personal growth. And he brought on this guy, and I don't know if this was one of your next questions or so, but it's this guy, and some people that I've worked with will have heard this before, but it's Hal Elrod.
Yep.
And it's called The Miracle Morning.
Okay.
Just watch it.
Just watch it.
I mean, I watched it probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And it absolutely helped change, you know, my path with some stuff in a very positive. Check it out.
Cool. Checking it out. A fun way to work out. What is that for you?
Fun way to work out?
Yeah.
If I could choose my workout?
Yeah.
Oh.
Run?
Yeah.
Is it?
I would probably run and ride. Probably if I could paint my picture perfect day, because actually the girls just asked me this the other day. I would get up and I'd run, and then we'd go ski, and then we'd come back and we'd have pizza and beer and a movie with the girls. Obviously the girls wouldn't be drinking beer.
What
But
movie?
if it weren't ski season, it would be run and then ride in the afternoon. So, yeah.
All right. What movie are you watching?
Christmas Vacation right now.
Perfect.
The greatest movie ever.
Jason, keeping it super positive as ever.
Thanks,
Awesome
man.
to have you, buddy. You've made a profound
be here.
impact on the life of tons of firefighters, myself included.
It's good to be here, man.
Yeah.
My best to all of you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Love you, brother.
See you, buddy.
Thanks for joining us on Going Interior. I hope the ideas shared here help you to adapt to the challenges of your life and career. Please share and like this episode if you find it useful. It's been produced by Dirk Klingman and Ellis Thompson of the Grand Junction Fire Department, with special thanks to 970 West Studio for sharing their space, equipment, and expertise. Take care, and please join us again next week.